Welcome to OSIKANI TV on YouTube once again. Let's talk about latest news coming in from the camp of Ghana Black Stars players. Yes, finally, the transfer window has been closed. Yes, and yesterday we saw the player Kamaldeen Suleimana, who finally joined Southampton. It has been confirmed that he is a new player for Southampton for a fee around 25 million euros. He has become the all-time highest signing for the Saints. So Kamaldeen Suleimana is a Saint. Then we will also talk about Tariq Lamptey. His move to a new club did not materialize, so he will be a player for Brighton and Hove Albion. Then Ayew, his move to either Everton or Nottingham Forest did not happen last night, but hey, he can still join any club anytime because he is a free player, so he can still continue to have talks with other clubs. And yesterday there was a host, or there was that is a Twitter space. There were a lot of experts who spoke about Ghanaian transfers, talking of Antoine Semenyo joining AFC Bournemouth, Kamaldeen Suleimana also joining Southampton, Kudus staying in Ajax, Brighton Hove Albion's right back Tariq Lamptey, who did not join any club, and other Ghanaian players as well. So let's just take a listen to this all-important space, which was hosted with a lot of experts, the likes of Michael, the likes of Botte, the likes of Reku Pofo. They were all on this live. So let's enjoy. Before then, kindly like the video, drop a like. After that, you smash the subscribe button, you put on the bell for more updates on this channel. So let's enjoy the space, which was organized last night.
Who started the window with a lot of talk of transfer was Mohammed Kudus, and he's always found his way back into the news. There were links to Manchester United, there was Dortmund, and what have you? So many other teams you were interested in him. Everton were trying to get him at some point. One, you still have Kudus. Transfer is shot, and he's still your player. If I told you January 1st that Kudus will still be an Ajax player, would you have believed me?
Hi, Oraku. Thank you for introducing me. Yeah, I think so. I think so, to be honest, because um, at the position that we're at right now, one of the mistakes that our management, or maybe lack of management, did last summer is selling a lot of players. We sold, I believe, 10 up to 13 players, and of those players, I think six were of the starting 11, seven important players. So um, you cannot really sell this to your fans. Even though we are a club that like sell our players eventually, you cannot go through a season and sell all your best players. So I think it became pretty clear once Kudus, and it was also the case with Edson Alvarez, both of them at the end of the last day, basically, of the transfer window in the summer, that they could leave. And Ajax just said no, because Anthony actually didn't want to sell Anthony, but the amount was so high that they said we cannot say no to that. So I think when it came to January, it was all about just maintaining the squad as much as possible. And with the situation we're in right now, we're not doing too good at the league. We need all the players we can get. And honestly, if you look at all the players, even though we had a really rough patch, Kudus seems the one that's been performing the best, even though he hasn't been playing all the games, and he hasn't even been playing on his favorite position. So that also says a lot about his quality, in my opinion.
And now that he's staying for the rest of the season, I think the departure of Schreider may bring out a different beast in him. Do you anticipate a possible move this summer, or would it depend on how things end?
No, I'm pretty confident that he will leave after the season. I think he already voiced a couple of times that he also wants to improve himself and develop himself, and always looking for a challenge. Um, the thing for us Ajax fans, how I see it, is unfortunately we never saw his true potential in those 3 years. Because at the end of the season will be 3 years here. Mainly because of injuries. To be honest, it really set him back a lot. Three different kinds of injuries, and yeah, so he couldn't really, like, have a run of games. And even this season, I mean, this season is the first time that he's been fit throughout the season so far, knock on wood. But he hasn't been playing on his favorite position. He hasn't been playing on the midfield. Schroeder was only utilizing him as the number nine, and has been rotating him with Brobbey, child of the club, which we had to get back for 20 plus millions from Leipzig. So it hasn't been easy for Kudus, to be honest. And now we have an interim coach. We don't know how long he will stay as a coach. It's a bit unclear. So Heitinga has been promoted from the under 23 academy players, and he's now taking over. So last game we played against Excelsior, our first win after 7 games. Kudus was one of the best players, but he played from the right wing this time. So he was much more given freedom to play from the right wing, coming inside as an extra midfielder. So again, it depends what will happen with Ajax in terms of the coaches, if Heitinga can stay, because Heitinga stated also after the match on Sunday that Kudus has exceptional qualities. And the thing is, Heitinga would be good for Kudus because Kudus, when he was injured and he had to get some rhythm, he could play under the 23s a couple of times. Heitinga was the coach, so he has seen Kudus play before, so he knows what kind of player Kudus is.
Mm. Well, that's a different angle, and we would see, how the development of Mohammed Kudus definitely goes. But before we wrap up with the Ajax, just for you to touch on Kamaldeen Suleimana a bit, uh, there was a point where he was so close to joining your club, and so I'm sure you do know him very very well. It's been reported that he would be most likely be heading to the Premier League after signing, a deal with Southampton, which is yet to be confirmed. We're waiting on, the official confirmation. But what do you make of him as a player? Do you, and with the benefit of hindsight, I know we had this discussion behind closed doors, but with the benefit of hindsight, do you think he might be regretting that move to Rennes over Ajax?
Um, that's a difficult question, to be honest. I think at the time that it was very close. I mean, I remember Overmars at the time saying after the deal fell through that it was only a matter of basically signing the papers, and just last minute he wasn't too confident, and then he chose to go to Rennes, and we never knew exactly the reason. But what we think happened was, I think he thought about and looked at the squad of Ajax, and look, he's playing on the left wing, right? So that's his main position. And we have Tadic there. And Tadic basically, at the time with Ten Hag, never got substituted. He's like the king on the field. He's our captain, plays all the games. So I think he felt like maybe, or maybe he talked to Kudus. Maybe Kudus gave him some insights. I don't know. But I think he thought like I would have more playing time going somewhere else. And to be honest, in hindsight, what happened was the Kamaldeen fell through, the deal fell through, and then we went for another player from Denmark, Mohammed Darami. And actually, I'm not saying Darami is at the same level as Kamaldeen, so don't misinterpret what I'm trying to say, but Darami could never make his mark during that season, and he got loaned out back to Copenhagen now because he didn't get any playing time, and also was basically attracted or signed for the left wing position. So in hindsight, you could say maybe it was a good decision not to come to Ajax. And about how good he is, I remember because we have a YouTube channel, We Talk Ajax. I remember we invited a Copenhagen fan and also another Danish fan from Noord-Holland, and we were talking about the Darami comparison with Kamaldeen. And basically, the Noord-Holland fan said that Kamaldeen is one of the highest rated players he's ever seen playing for his club, even higher than Kudus. He even said that he would see him, if everything goes well, end up at Barcelona or something. So at that time, Kamaldeen was viewed as like top notch, a level basically. But again, it also depends on what kind of decisions you take in your career. And now with Southampton and the Everton, I was smiling a bit because I also read it today that last minute he chose another club. So again, maybe it has to do with playing time. It's hard to know because I'm not close to the player. But yeah, so if you look at what happened to Ajax and what's happening now, maybe there's a little bit of similarities.
I just wanted to hear, what you think about Semenyo's move to the Premier League.
Oh, for me, that move was brilliant. I'm really excited for Semenyo. If you've looked at his development, you can tell that he deserves a big move. Okay, Semenyo has been excellent. Um, this season he struggled early parts, injuries, but I mean, post World Cup he came back. First 3 games, still game time, struggling. He finally gets chances, and then yes, he starts performing. It's no surprise that if you look at their last 4 games or 5 games, his goals have been very crucial, and it's one reason why Bristol City actually held on to him for the price that he wanted. Because hey, why would you want 12 million pounds for Semenyo? That's the question everyone kept asking. So I mean, it took some time for them to finally agree to take the 10.5 that Bournemouth were offering. But I think for him coming to the Premier League is excellent. I think the club is going to is not bad. He can definitely shine there. He's a type that is always hungry, and that's one thing I love about him. He wants to make it. He wants to succeed. Playing up front for Bournemouth won't be bad. I see him getting into the starting lineup because he can definitely pull some strings up there, which would definitely get the coach thinking. And don't forget, Bournemouth are struggling as well. They need firepower up front, and Semenyo can definitely give them that. He's not, he doesn't score so many goals, but in terms of movement, he can play from the wide areas into. He can play as an inside forward. In fact, he's very versatile up front. That's one thing that really counts for Bournemouth. So I think Semenyo going there, it's a really great move for me. Looking at the other clubs that were also interested, um, Crystal Palace were interested at a point. I think that was an opportunity, but they never actually followed up on the final day. And Burnley was also one of those interesting one, but I think the Premier League move was more attractive. So it explains why he moved there. I really like the deal, and I'm hoping that he flourishes. 4.5 year deal, 2027. I think it's good enough. He can definitely make it.
Kamaldeen, his deal to Southampton has been confirmed. I just had an extra question on this. I assume you know the profile of Nathan Jones coming in from the lower tier into the Premier League. Do you think it's a big jump for him? And with the caliber of players that he has now, does it put extra pressure on him to deliver now?
I think it's an incredibly pressured position that Nathan Jones is in. Myself being Brighton orientated, Nathan Jones being someone who was at Brighton at one stage as player and coach, it's difficult to see because he's going into a Southampton side that are desperate to be picking up points in the relegation battle. They've made some decent signings. I think this signing to bring in Suleimana at the end is something that's very promising for them. They needed someone like that to come in and give them a bit of promise. But he is still young. There's going to be a lot of pressure on him. He's only 20 years old. He has made 15 appearances for Ghana or something in that region, so he's got experience at the highest level. But most of his minutes in Liga for Rennes were off the bench. Is he a player who's going to come in immediately and make a difference for them? I'm not too sure. Nathan Jones, a manager who does well with young players, he should be able to help them adapt. But it all just feels not rushed because it's a good signing and Jones is a great manager, but there is just so much pressure on a manager that hasn't had that Premier League experience previously. So I would be quite worried if I was a Southampton fan at the moment. I do have confidence they'll pull through, but it's going to be a lot of pressure.
Well, from a Ghanaian perspective, we do definitely hope that they survive relegation with Mohammed Salisu and then now Kamaldeen Suleimana in there. Hey, now.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the day Ayew.
Yeah.
During the afternoon, there was some rumor going on about he joining Everton. How true is that?
From what I know, the it doesn't look like the Everton move was legit. But I don't know, Charlie. Do you have anything on that?
I don't, I'm afraid. I wish I could give you a bit more information on that one.
I think
Yeah.
it was just a rumor. So because he's a free agent, I mean there are a lot of clubs interested, but it wasn't as if yes, it was setting. And L'Equipe came to say they are in advanced talks, but as to how true they are, we can't tell. Yeah,
I,
but there were
I
definitely
would
interest
I would
from
be,
numerous
I'd be very
clubs.
surprised if Sean Dyche's first signing was Andre Ayew. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, I'm really surprised. It doesn't send out the right message. For a club battling relegation, you would expect much better than a 33-year-old forward who has probably seen his better days. But you can never say never. He's a free transfer, and he can still negotiate with any club. And so,
Anybody, yeah.
sure, you would be hearing a lot more reports in the upcoming days. But then again, I do not think he'll be joining Everton. But Charlie,
Tariq,
yeah, Joe.
just to quickly end on this Everton topic, I really feel sad for them because they needed some cash, some
Mhm.
money for the window. They were able to get Gordon sold, but then they were not able to bring a single player in. For me, it's painful for a club that is battling
I,
relegation.
I think it's
I
just
don't know.
it's just poor planning. I don't know what Charlie thinks because the you see, I think the difference is that you just have to be really proactive as a club. And the difference with a player like Kamaldeen Suleiman choosing, let's say, Southampton over Everton is the fact that he knew what Southampton were trying to do, and he probably knew their coach. Everton didn't really know who was going to be their coach up until maybe 3-4 days ago. There were so many names hanging in as to whether he'll be getting in the signings, all the videos of Everton players being abused by the fans. Some of these things influence the decisions of players, and I'm not surprised that no player went to the club. I think that in the past 3-4 years, they've been the most unstable Premier League side. And it just doesn't inspire confidence when you look at the ownership and all that. But maybe Charlie can provide a lot more on Everton. And I think they just look like a side out of sorts. 6, 7 managers, permanent managers in the last 4, 5 years. It just looks like a side that has been sinking, right?
Yeah, it certainly seems so because Everton have been never present in the Premier League in the top division. It's almost unheard of that they're in a Premier League relegation battle. They've always been that side that have either been at least mid-table or pushing in the top half or even European football. So to see them right in amongst it and with the least wins at the halfway stage, it's pretty shocking to see. A lot of it is down to their situation with their ownership, how uncertain things are at the moment. So many changes of manager, but you got to wonder. It seems to be that whoever comes in as the manager, not much changes. So it must be something that needs to be some sort of overhaul with the ownership, and you can see why fans are so worried about that. So no wonder, sorry, that Suleimana has gone to Southampton instead. Of course, having Salisu there as well is going to welcome him in, having an international teammate. But the uncertainty at Everton is even more so than Southampton. With Southampton, it's not the ownership thing; it's just the worry of relegation. Whereas Everton have got both of those things. Southampton, not as big of a club of Everton, but I think a young player coming in from Liga, a Ghanaian wanting to maybe join up with an international teammate makes a bit more sense.
And I mean, just speaking of Ghanaians, I don't know why this skipped me, but I wanted to ask about Tariq Lamptey. At a point, he was reported to have, been linked to moves to Sporting to replace Pearl once he leaves, and then there were also talks of Olympic Lyon and other clubs. What was the transfer window like? Was there any real interest, and was he really close to leaving?
It seemed as if Brighton weren't actually keen on letting him go on a loan deal. I think that might have suited him because he struggled to get consistent game time. Whether that's down to the fact that the likes of Joel Veltman and Pascal Gross have been playing really well at right back, or if Lamptey hasn't had the fitness, or just the system that De Zerbi wants to play. He likes his fullbacks to tuck in a little bit. Lamptey maybe a bit more of a wide player, getting forward on the overlap. Maybe that's the problem. I'm not sure. So I think a loan deal would have maybe made sense. Somewhere like Sporting Lisbon, where Pedro Porro is leaving for Tottenham Hotspur, they need someone in to start every single game, playing in Europe as well, challenging for the title. I think that would make sense for him. But the fact Brighton weren't open to that loan move and it was kind of a permanent or nothing, I'm glad he stayed because I think he does have a lot to offer for Brighton still. We saw that against Liverpool, sorry, in the FA Cup, the win the other day, the 2-1. He started that game. He looked really good defensively, also going forward, creating lots of opportunities on both feet. I think he still does have a lot to offer for Brighton. It's just whether he can get that consistent game time or not.
I mean, just to close on Lamptey, what are his prospects? What are his real chances? In terms of breaking into that team, do you think that he probably, after such a good game against Liverpool, he may be rewarded in the next game, or the team is just too stable and too good to break into at the moment?
I think there's definitely the potential for rotation, and he did play very well against Liverpool. He's proving that he's getting fitness again, and he's always a threat, even after his injuries. I think a lot of people were, especially Brighton fans, I suppose Ghanaian fans as well, maybe worried that his pace has gone away a little bit because of his hamstring problems. But he seems to still have a lot of pace. Up against the likes of Mohammed Salah at the weekend, he was able to get back, track back, make last-ditch challenges. Didn't look like he was too worried about getting injured again. There are some good signs. I think that the Zerbi, maybe the medical team, have been very careful to not bring him in too quickly. So hopefully, with his current trajectory, he can start playing a lot more towards the end of the season. I'd like to see him get back to the level of a couple of years ago. Or a couple of games just after lockdown when there were no fans in the ground. I remember watching at home thinking, this guy is going to be the next £50 million player. Bayern Munich were linked with him. Lots of clubs across Europe, Manchester United, even Chelsea for a return, Arsenal. All these teams were interested in him because he was so good. He's just not hit that level since. So maybe there are signs at the moment he can get there. It's just about being patient with him and not putting too much pressure on.